Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're talking about cholesterol. You know, that one molecule everyone seems to be afraid of, the one you're always checking for on food labels.
It's a fascinating subject. We're going to do a deep dive into what it actually is,
Right.
because it's so much more than just a number on a blood test.
Right, it has this reputation for being, a villain. But the truth is, it's absolutely fundamental to all animal life. We literally couldn't exist without it.
It's the ultimate paradox, really. It's the scaffolding for our cells, but when it's mismanaged in the body, it can become a huge problem. Our goal today is to move past that simple good versus bad label.
We want to unpack the science, understand what cholesterol actually does, and look at the incredible system our bodies use to manage it. Think of it as the anatomy of a big misunderstanding.
Let's start with the basics. Cholesterol is the principal sterol.
For all animals.
For all animals, it's everywhere in your body, but it's really, really concentrated in the nervous system. So the brain and the spinal cord.
I love the history here. It's not a very glamorous origin story, is it?
Not at all. It was first isolated back in 1769, and they found it in, of all things, gallstones. Just solid, crystalline chunks.
And that's where the name comes from, right?
Exactly. A French chemist named it in 1815. It's from the ancient Greek kol, which means bile, and stereos, which means solid.
Solid from bile. Makes sense.
It's a literal description of where they first found it. So the main takeaway here is that cholesterol isn't some kind of contaminant from our food.
Our bodies make it.
Every single one of our cells makes it. It's an essential structural part, and it's a signaling molecule. And it's interesting, you basically don't find it in bacteria or other simple organisms. They don't need it. But for us, for animals, it's absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If every cell needs it, what is it actually doing in there? What's its primary job?
Its number one job, the most fundamental one, is structural. It's a key component of the animal cell membrane.
So it holds the cell together.
It does more than that. It modulates the membrane's fluidity, so it keeps it from being too runny or too stiff.
Like it keeps it in that just right zone.
Exactly. And it does this across a whole range of temperatures. You see, the membrane is mostly made of these fatty acid chains and cholesterol slots in between them.
And what does that do?
Well, at body temperature, which is pretty warm, it kind of stiffens things up. It increases the packing and keeps the membrane from getting leaky or falling apart.
So it's adding stability.
Right. But then at lower temperatures, it does the opposite. It gets in the way of those fatty acids packing too tightly, so it prevents the membrane from freezing solid. It keeps it flexible.
And this is apparently why animal cells don't need a rigid wall like a plant cell does.
That's the evolutionary genius of it. Cholesterol gives us internal stability, which allows our cells to be flexible and to move. Without it, our cells would just, well, they'd burst.
And it's also the gatekeeper. It helps control what gets in and out.
A crucial role. It makes the membrane much less permeable to small things, especially ions like hydrogen and sodium.
Why is blocking those two so important?
Because everything from nerve impulses to muscle contractions relies on keeping a very specific electrical gradient across that membrane. If those ions could just leak across freely, the whole system would collapse.
So cholesterol is both the rebar in the wall and the security guard at the gate.
A very good way to put it.
But its job doesn't even stop there. This is where it gets really interesting for me. It's the starting block for so many other vital things in the body.
It is. This is where it shifts from being a structural piece to being a master signaling molecule. It's the precursor for a whole class of essential compounds.
Let's start with vitamin D.
Yep. A form of cholesterol just under your skin gets hit by UVB light from the sun, and that kicks off the process of making vitamin D3.
Which we need for calcium, bone health, our immune system.
All of that. And then you have the steroid hormones.
All of them.
Every single one. Cholesterol is the essential starting point. This includes the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and the adrenal hormones.
Like cortisol, the stress hormone.
Cortisol and also aldosterone, which manages your salt and water balance and, your blood pressure. Without cholesterol, you lose the ability to manage stress, to reproduce, to regulate blood pressure. It's all connected.
It's staggering. And then there's the brain. You mentioned it has the highest concentration. Why?
Insulation. It's all about speed. Your neurons have these long fibers called axons that need to send electrical signals really fast.
And to do that, you need to insulate the wire.
You do. And that insulation is called the myelin sheath. And myelin is incredibly rich in cholesterol. It's what makes it such a fantastic electrical insulator, allowing the nerve impulse to jump down the fiber at incredible speeds.
And when that insulation breaks down, you get diseases like multiple sclerosis.
That's right. The loss of that cholesterol-rich myelin or demyelination is at the heart of it. The signals just can't travel efficiently anymore.
And the brain has its own private supply chain for this stuff, doesn't it? It doesn't take it from the blood.
That's a key point. The brain is walled off by the blood-brain barrier, so it has to make its own cholesterol right there on site.
Who makes it?
Specialized cells called astrocytes, they're like the local cholesterol factory, and they produce it and then deliver it to the neurons that need it.
So it's clear it's an absolute hero molecule.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the big question. If it's so vital, why does the transport system we have for it seem to cause so much trouble?
Well, because it's so vital, the body has this incredibly complex system for making it and getting it where it needs to go. And that system relies way more on what we make than what we eat.
Let's talk numbers. How much do we make versus how much do we eat?
Okay, so a typical adult male makes about 1 gram. That's 1,000 milligrams of cholesterol every single day.
1,000 milligrams?
Yes.
And dietary intake?
In the U.S., the typical daily intake is only around 300 milligrams.
So we make more than 3 times what we eat. That one fact feels like it should change the entire conversation.
It really should. It tells you that your blood cholesterol is primarily controlled by your body's own production, not just your diet. And the body is smart. If you eat more cholesterol, it just makes less.
It compensates.
It has to. It's a feedback loop. And that's why, 7 or 8 hours after a meal, the cholesterol from that food has very little effect on your overall blood levels. The body has already adjusted.
The problem isn't the molecule, it's the delivery. It's a fatty, oily substance trying to travel through our watery blood.
Exactly. It can't just float around on its own. It needs to be packaged up for transport.
And that's where lipoproteins come in. The famous LDL and HDL.
Right. These are like little transport spheres. They have a water-friendly surface and a fatty core where they carry the cholesterol and other fats.
Let's focus on the main delivery truck. LDL, low-density lipoprotein.
LDL is the major cholesterol carrier. Its job is to take cholesterol from the liver out to all the other cells in the body that need it. Each little LDL particle is carrying something like 1,500 molecules of cholesterol ester.
And how do cells grab it?
They have special docking stations on their surface called LDL receptors. When a cell needs cholesterol, it puts out more of these receptors to catch the LDL particles as they float by in the blood.
So LDL is doing an essential job. Why does it get called bad cholesterol?
The bad part comes in when that system breaks down. If you don't have enough functional LDL receptors, maybe due to genetics or other factors, you can't clear the LDL from your blood efficiently.
So the delivery trucks just keep circling the block with nowhere to park.
A perfect analogy. And the longer they circle, the more likely they are to become damaged, or what we call oxidized.
And this oxidized LDL is the real troublemaker.
That's the truly dangerous stuff. Once it's oxidized, your immune system sees it as a threat. Immune cells called macrophages rush into the artery walls to clean it up.
Like a cleanup crew.
But they don't have an off switch for this stuff. They just gorge themselves on the oxidized LDL until they become these bloated, fatty cells called foam cells.
And these foam cells get stuck.
They get trapped in the artery wall. And that buildup of foam cells is the very beginning of an atherosclerotic plaque. That's the process that narrows arteries and leads to heart attacks and strokes.
So it's not the LDL itself, but the oxidized LDL and the immune system's overreaction to it.
That is the core of it. Which brings us to the hero of the story, HDL, high-density lipoprotein.
The good cholesterol. What's its job?
HDL is the cleanup crew. Its job is what we call reverse cholesterol transport. It goes around to the tissues and even into those early plaques and collects excess cholesterol.
It's like a garbage truck.
It is. It mops up the excess and carries it back to the liver.
And what happens at the liver?
The liver can then get rid of it from the body, usually by converting it into bile acids. So HDL completes the loop, preventing that dangerous buildup in the arteries.
Which explains why having higher levels of HDL is linked to better health. You need the delivery trucks, the LDL, but you absolutely have to have an efficient cleanup crew, the HDL.
It's a beautifully designed balancing act. The problems start when either delivery or cleanup fails.
Okay, so the body clearly has a powerful system for managing all this. Let's talk about the control room. How does a cell know when to make more cholesterol? And how do drugs like statins tap into that?
The regulation is incredibly precise, and it all comes down to one key enzyme. It's called HMG-CoA reductase.
That's the one you always hear about. Why is it so important?
Because it controls the rate-limiting step in the whole manufacturing process. It's the main faucet.
Yeah.
If you want to make less cholesterol, you turn down this enzyme.
And that's exactly what statins do.
Precisely. Statins block this enzyme. They jam up the production line, so your body just makes less cholesterol.
But that's not all they do, is it? There's another, maybe even more important effect.
Yes, this is crucial. When a liver cell realizes its internal cholesterol production has been shut down by a statin, it thinks there's a shortage.
So it panics.
It goes into emergency mode. It starts putting out way more of those LDL receptors on its surface. It's trying to scavenge as much cholesterol as it can from the blood to fix the perceived shortage.
So it starts pulling all that circulating LDL out of the bloodstream much faster.
Exactly. So statins have this powerful 1-2 punch. They reduce production and they increase clearance from the blood. And that dual action is why they're so effective.
And the mechanism for this, the SREBP pathway, was Nobel Prize-winning science.
It's one of the most elegant feedback loops in biology. Basically, there's a protein called SREDP that's held captive in part of the cell when cholesterol levels are high.
But when levels drop.
It gets released, it travels to the cell's nucleus and acts like a master switch, turning on the genes for making more cholesterol and, critically, for making more of those LDL receptors.
It's just a stunningly complex system for managing one single molecule.
It really is. And it shows why, in a clinical setting, we focus so much on LDL levels. That's the real risk metric. The goal for most people is to get their LDL below 100 milligrams per deciliter.
And we know that lowering it with statins works.
The evidence is overwhelming. For about every 40 points you lower your LDL with a statin, you reduce your risk of a major cardiovascular event by about 21%. That's a huge impact.
So let's bring this back to diet for a moment. How has this new understanding changed the advice we get about food?
Well, we know animal foods have cholesterol because animal cells make it, but plants don't really. They make something similar called phytosterols.
And those are actually good for us.
They are. They compete with cholesterol for absorption in your gut, so they can actually help lower your cholesterol a bit by blocking its absorption.
So this understanding that internal production is king and that what we eat is less important led to a big change in dietary guidelines.
A huge change. In 2015, the U.S. dietary guidelines officially dropped the strict 300 milligram a day limit on dietary cholesterol that had been in place for decades.
Because the science showed it wasn't the main driver.
Right. They replaced it with more general advice to, eat as little dietary cholesterol as possible, but the main focus shifted to overall healthy eating patterns. Things like the Mediterranean diet, which are good for your heart, for a whole host of reasons, not just cholesterol.
It really brings the whole story full circle. We've moved from just counting milligrams in eggs to appreciating this incredibly sophisticated internal system.
We have.
So to summarize our deep dive, cholesterol is not the villain. It's an essential building block for our cells, our hormones, our nervous system.
And our bodies manage it with this stunningly complex transport and regulation system. The problem isn't the cholesterol itself, it's a breakdown in the balance of that system.
A breakdown between delivery and cleanup.
Precisely. And I want to leave you with one final thought. This molecule is so unique that it even has a life outside of biology.
What do you mean?
Well, certain derivatives of cholesterol can form something called a cholesteric liquid crystal.
Liquid crystal. Like in a TV screen.
Sort of. The amazing property of these specific liquid crystals is that they change color based on their temperature.
Really?
Yes. So they are used commercially in things like those forehead strip thermometers that change color, or in temperature-sensitive paints.
That's incredible. So the same molecule that structures our cells and helps our brain fire is also used to help us measure the temperature of the world around us.
It's a perfect example of how foundational chemistry drives everything. So the next time you hear about bad cholesterol, I hope you'll remember the incredible complexity we've talked about today. The real story isn't just on your plate, it's in the beautiful, intricate regulation inside every one of your cells.